Welcome back to the realm of the mindful madman. So I just finished reading a short story called The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins. This book was originally, or this novel or short story was originally published in the 19th century. So it says in 1892 is when it was published. So in a nutshell, this short story was basically about a woman who was going through postpartum depression, and the way it's written, the reader kind of gets like a first-hand account of what's going on in her mind, because other than like maybe a couple conversations she had with her husband, most of it she was spent in isolation. So I looked up the book a little bit more because I just wanted to kind of get like a backstory on why the author wrote it. Apparently during this time period there was like a medical practice or like a treatment per se, and it was called the rest cure. And a lot of women went through this, where basically if they were treated for like hysteria or like they were depressed or something, the doctor or the physician or whoever was taking care of them would make them go on the rest cure, which was basically they had a restricted diet, they were placed in isolation, and they couldn't really do anything. Like they couldn't do much activity. And basically this author was writing this book as to go against that, because that's what she lived through during her time period. And essentially the woman in the novel that was going through postpartum depression, her husband had her go to this basically had her isolated in a room, a yellow wallpaper room, for several months. And the story just kind of shows the account of like what happened to her. I'm not going to spoil it, but stuff happens to her psychologically in her mind. And the short story is just a representation of pretty much like what happens to a person's mind over a period of time as they're actually losing their mind, and the actions that they take because they no longer are sane per se. And the main takeaway that I got from this is that when someone tells you that there's something wrong with them, instead of playing it off or ignoring them or thinking you know everything or trying to tell them about themselves, actually listen to them, because you not listening to that person could be the thing, or you could be a reason why they become even more insane, as opposed to just being like, oh, just rest, oh, it's all in your head. Like, nah, like things happen. Like this is also like on the spiritual side, like people see things, and sometimes when you encounter someone, or you're with someone, or you're married to someone who's so logical and they can't see it, you'll feel like you're all alone, as this woman felt, because her husband was a physician. So like, and this isn't like dogging physicians, but he like saw everything from a medical logical perspective. So he had her go on this rest cure, which obviously Charlotte Perkins is pretty much stating in this novel that it didn't work, and it made this woman's life even worse. Now, I'm not going to go any further into that because I don't want to spoil it, but there was one quote that I just wanted to mention real fast that backs up the point of what I just said about listening to people when they tell you that there's something wrong with them. So basically the quote was, and this is the main character, it doesn't say her name, she was talking to her husband, basically saying like, there's something wrong with me, I don't feel good, blah blah blah. So this is the part. I got up softly and went to feel and see if the paper did move, and when I came back, John was awake. John is her husband. What is it, little girl? He said. Don't go walking about like that, you'll get a cold. I thought it was a good time to talk, so I told him that I really was not gaining here, and that I wished he would take me away. Why, darling? He said. Our lease will be up in 3 weeks, and I can't see how to leave before. So that's just one example of how this man talks to his wife. Like, you would think that this is like a child that he's speaking to, but I guess back in these times, it's kind of like, it's kind of demeaning, honestly, because, you know, back in these times, women didn't have any rights or anything. So like whatever her husband said goes, and there was not any type of like healthy discourse between husband and wife, at least not in this case. It was just this woman tried to speak her opinion, her husband wouldn't listen, so she just shut up, and he would just make all the decisions for her. And he treated her as if she was like incompetent of like actually knowing exactly how she feels. And it was actually kind of annoying, but I mean, I personally think that he is the reason for her downfall. If you do read the book or the short story, you'll kind of see that why I think that way. But yeah, he was like condescending, and he like treated her as if she was like a child. It was almost like it was kind of like a fetish. It was a little weird, but I would say that this particular short story, when I looked it up, it said that it was a gothic fiction book. I think it's more of a psychological thriller, not necessarily in the way of like Agatha Christie, not like that, like a murder psychological thriller. It's just like most of the short story wasn't scary. It was just like the last, like the climax, when everything was pieced together. You're like, oh, damn, this woman really did lose her mind. And it was kind of funny. Not the fact that she lost her mind, it was just like the way she would describe things. But yeah. So listen to people when there's something wrong with them and they're trying to cry out for help. Don't just dismiss them because you can't understand it. Actually try to step into their world for a second, or you might make things worse because they might actually need you to help them get out of whatever hell they're facing in their mind.